Yo, what's good, everybody, and thank you for tuning in to another one of my videos. Today, we are going to be exploring the nostalgia culture. And what better show to do it with than Mo to the E to the Moesha. Now, I did a few Moesha videos. Well, before I get to that, if this is your first time coming to my channel, welcome. If you are a returning family member, then you already know what it is and what it always will be. Be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe. Tell somebody to tell somebody if you choose to, but if not, just sit back, relax while we enter in a space of nostalgia. Now, I did a couple of videos on Moesha, and the feedback was amazing. I had people who were commenting, people who were DMing me, and I greatly appreciate it. And it's so good to know that so many people loved and still love Moesha the same way that I do. Talking about this show, even though this show has been off the air 20 plus years, it still brings me happiness. It still makes me feel good inside, and it allows me to relive a moment in life when things were just innocent and simple. And I love going back to that place every now and then. So one of my supporters DM'd me and wanted me to talk about this particular moment on Moesha where Hakeem and Q come face to face after Moesha and Q get engaged. So let's just take a moment and look at this clip.
Oh my God, not you. That's right. What's up? What's up? You gonna go propose to my girl and ask me what's up? Look, I'm sorry if you got hurt, but she's a grown woman. She made her choice. We're in love. If y'all so in love, man, then why has she been hiding it? Well, if she hid it from you, it's because she figured you couldn't handle it. Handle what? Or the fact that she got mad at me and you swooped her up on a rebound? Call it what you want. Call it what it is, homeboy.
Now, let me just say that both Lamont Bentley, rest in peace, and Fredro Starr are absolutely fine, okay? One is a little caramel complected, the other one is chocolate, and they were both giving what was supposed to have been giving during that time. Before I talk about this, let me kind of set this moment up a little bit. So we already know, and for those who don't, Moesha and Hakeem were dating. They weren't dating long. They've been best friends their whole lives, and they decided to, change the dynamic of their relationship to that of a romantic one. It didn't last long because Moesha caught Hakeem and Niecy sharing a kiss on the lips. Shouldn't have happened. And I'm going to do another video because I just don't like how the writers downplayed that kiss as if it wasn't a big deal, as if it wasn't an action that caused hurt to someone. I'm going to come back to that. But this is where we are. And so Moesha decides to go on tour with Q. Q is about to continue I believe the European leg of his tour. It's time for Moesha to come back to college, and he proposes. Now, as much as I liked Moesha and Q when I was younger, and the first part of their relationship, I thought it was cool. I loved them together. It was growing pains, your first love, getting in trouble, all that stuff. Okay, cool. Now, the second part of their relationship, I agree with everything Hakeem said. Q and Moesha was nothing more than a rebound situation. She was upset. She was angry. She was hurt. Q is familiar. He was there. I'm sure those old feelings resurfaced, so it was easy to go back to that old thing, and they got engaged. I don't believe for a moment that Moesha was ready to get married. I don't believe for a moment that Moesha loved Q in that way to want to spend the rest of her life with him. I believe she was hurt, and a lot of times hurt people, and what better way to kind of take a little jab at Hakeem, even though she was hiding the engagement, what better way to do that than get with the man that everyone knows you genuinely had feelings for, who was your first love. Now, let's go to the moment where Hakeem sees Q for the first time now that he and Moesha are engaged. We really didn't get a lot of opportunities to see Hakeem function in this way. Hakeem was really cool, calm, and collected. He was the nice guy. But one thing that I saw throughout the entire series is that when it came to Moesha, as a friend, he was always protective of her heart, her interests. Even the guys that she was dating, he did give her space to do what she needed to do in her relationships, but he was kind of always that watchful eye. So to see Hakeem function in this way of, yes, I'm hurt. And also, one thing I don't want to forget is that Hakeem and Q were really good friends. And so you have to deal with the demise of a relationship. And, unfortunately, during this time period in life, a lot of friendships fall by the wayside because they both share in the affection of a woman or a man. And in this case, it was both sharing in the love and affection of Moesha. Now, do I believe that Q understood that Moesha was a rebound? I do. Do I believe he wanted to admit that? No, because he has a second chance with the girl that he actually did love at one point. When Hakeem mentioned that Moesha was hiding her engagement, and Q said, well, if she was hiding it from you, she probably felt that you couldn't handle it. The truth of the matter is, before this episode, Moesha kept her engagement a secret to almost everyone. It was almost as if people found out by accident. She did eventually tell Frank that she was engaged to Q, but it was like right before this episode. She blurted it out to Hakeem in an episode, and it was, he was hurt. Oh, it was such a bad moment, but I'll probably do another video on that. She did tell Niecy. Dorian found out by accident because Moesha still had her ring on when she returned from the tour. So it wasn't something that she was excited about or even sharing. And I feel, yes, you are practically grown, but there is a reason why you're keeping this engagement a secret. You may be grown, but you're still immature in some ways because you were hiding one of the most special and precious moments that you can have in life, and you chose to keep it to yourself. So for me, that was already a red flag. The fact that Moesha was keeping this so close to the chest. Now, I remember when I first initially watched this episode when it first aired, I thought they were going to get into a fight. I really thought Hakeem and Q were going to get into a fight. And I'm like, I don't want this to happen because I don't know who to root for. Okay? I don't know who to root for. Q, I don't want you to mess up my baby Hakeem face. But also at the same time, Hakeem, I feel like you probably can't beat my baby Q. And I don't want to be stuck in the middle of this situation. I don't want to choose. However, I will say I know that I am in the minority because I actually enjoyed Moesha's relationship with Hakeem more than I enjoyed the second part of her relationship with Q. I didn't understand it. I don't know why it happened. Also, even in this episode, another reason why I say Moesha was not ready for any type of committing her life to anybody, because the reason that Moesha ended this engagement was one of the most immature reasons that I can think of. So in this particular episode, Genuine was a guest star, and he played a singer by the name of Khalid. And Khalid had a crush on Moesha, and he was able to come up with a way to help Q financially because he wasn't in the best place financially. And he wanted to pawn Moesha's engagement ring. Of course, she didn't want to return it. So she talked to Khalid. Hey, it could be a business deal between you and Q. Come over for Thanksgiving dinner. We'll talk about it then. When Moesha tells Q about her plan, of course, he goes ballistic. He's upset because Moesha invited another man into their personal financial business. And knowing the man that Q is, I know Moesha knew that was not going to fly. She got upset because Q was upset with her, and he asked her plain out, what do you want more, me or the ring? And she says, why don't I just give you what you want? She takes the ring off, sits it on the table, and he tells her, Moesha, I promise you, this is going to be something that we can look back on and laugh at. And you know what this girl's response was? Goodbye, Quentin, which is Q's real name. He took the ring and he left. And that was the end of them. That's how I knew, Moesha, baby, you got with Q because you was hurt. It was definitely a rebound. You may have had feelings for him, residual feelings, things that came up, but you didn't allow yourself to deal with the hurt that you experienced from Hakeem and Niecy. And even throughout that time, there will be certain references to the kiss, and you could tell that it definitely still affected Moesha. And I wish that the writers would have delved into that a little bit more, even, and they didn't, which, it is what it is. We can't cry over spilled milk. But I wish they would have dived in that a little bit more as to why Moesha chose to say yes to Q's proposal, the reason that she chose to come back and keep her engagement hidden. And even though Moesha definitely was a 30-minute, comedic sitcom, they definitely hit some monumental storylines and things that needed to be discussed as a family that I definitely appreciated then, and I definitely appreciate it now as an adult. But this particular moment in time in the Moesha series was definitely one to remember. It was definitely one of my favorite scenes because it was just a moment that I didn't ever expect for us to see between Q and Hakeem, and also for Hakeem to respond the way that he did. And not that I feel that he was wrong. I don't believe either one of them was wrong. It was just seeing this really come to the head and them having their brief moment for Hakeem to express how he felt. You proposed to my girl. It was a rebound. You knew it. Let's just call it what it is. And I was like, well, he ain't lying. He is not lying. But also, I can respect where Q was coming from. Like, you and Moesha was over. We got back together. I proposed. She said, yes, we're in love, and this is just what it is. But I said, Moesha, now this heifer was in the bathroom when all this was taking place. You ain't hear none of this commotion, and maybe she probably would have been like me, had my ear up to the door just listening. I probably would have been on cloud nine. These two men that I love, not that's messy, but at that time, she's like 20. I can imagine her having that moment. But I was like, girl, bring your behind to the front of this courtroom because, baby girl, we need to talk to you. And the fact that people were not instilling some type of wisdom into this woman. But then I also understand too, when you're at a certain age and you think you know everything and your parents just allow you to think that you know. And sometimes life is definitely the best teacher. It gives you the greatest experiences. But this was a moment in time that I definitely appreciate. And I definitely appreciate the person who asked me to talk about this and give my thoughts about it. I loved it. When Q opened that door and Hakeem was on the other side, I remember watching it as a young teenager, and I'm like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. I was like on the edge of my seat because I'm like, what is going to happen? What are they going to say? Is Moesha going to come out this bathroom? Is she going to have to break up a possible fight between them? What is going to happen? And to me, the biggest thing was they never really discussed the friendship that Q and Hakeem had at this moment in time, because they were good friends and we just never talked about that. But you're not going to get everything that you want in a sitcom. Again, Moesha, I thought Moesha was my favorite show, but actually A Different World is. But Moesha and A Different World might be tied because they both give me a feeling that I wish I could just bottle up and give to everyone, and it's just a great feeling to dive into nostalgia and deal with those emotions that you had when you were younger, and looking at things then and processing them, and looking at things now as an adult and processing them and how you would handle the situation and things of that nature. Because I don't think Moesha was mad enough to me with Niecy. Like, she came back, she had an attitude with Niecy. She was saying some slick remarks. I'll make another video about that. But her upsetness did not last long enough for me. You kissed my man, girl, and I ain't put hands on you. But I'm gonna leave it at that. But I thought this scene was needed. We definitely needed to have a conflict with Q and Hakeem, and they never spoke to each other again. That's the crazy part. After this moment, these two dudes never spoke about each other. Well, they did speak about each other. Hakeem did. But they never talked. They never had another conversation. But I guess they felt like everything that needed to be said was said. And after Q and Moesha engagement was ended, he definitely had no reason to enter into her life ever again. So that was the last time that we saw Fredro star on Moesha. That was his exit. Y'all could have left him back in season what? I forget the last time. I think the last time we saw Fredro star on Moesha before this was her 18th birthday. Y'all could have let that be his exit. If they was going to bring him back for that, for to end the engagement on something so immature. But it goes to show, when you're 20, I don't care how grown you think you are, you still are immature mentally, and you're not ready, for the most part, you're not ready for that type of relationship, that type of commitment when you still have unresolved issues that you're unwilling to deal with, acknowledge, and process. And I'm going to just leave it at that. I love Moesha. As y'all can tell, I love Moesha. I'm going to talk about Moesha more. I'm going to talk about girlfriends. I'm going to talk about the game. I'm going to talk about A Different World and every show back in the day that used to make me feel so great as a young black child, teenager into my adulthood. So if you have a particular episode, a particular scene, a particular storyline from a black show or film, you can put it in the comments. You can DM me at Allie Nick Official over there on IG, Instagram. And I appreciate y'all. I thank you for listening. Until next time, I will holler at y'all later, and y'all be safe out there.